This is a special year-end issue, and the main topic is on menstruation. That is the cover story, and Ashia has done a beautiful story on the link between folk art and menstruation. So Ashia, can you just tell me a little bit about the story and the book that you're holding?
Yeah. So the story that I have written on is essentially about how menstruation has found mention in a lot of the Indian folk arts that we see. Because we have, of course, heard a lot of urban voices through the years, especially, after digital platforms and social media became such a huge thing in our lives. We do keep hearing a lot about menstruation and a lot of other social issues. But I don't think we have really got the chance to explore what happens in the interiors of the country. Yeah. So, folk art is one of those mediums through which we get to kind of understand what happens within the interiors of the country and what people think about menstruation, or if it has at all found any mention in their arts. And, as it turns out, it in fact has. And
how is rural India? This is more about rural India.
It is, yeah.
And which part of rural India?
So this book that I am holding here, I have actually written about this book in my article. It's a very, very interesting book, and it's called Sharir Ki Jankari. It's from Rajasthan, and basically it's got a very fascinating backstory about which I've written in my article about how almost 70 to 75 women from the villages of Rajasthan had come together to make this book. And I think one of the most amazing parts about this book is the fact that it was published in the 1980s.
So women thought about it during those days as well.
Yeah, I mean...
but then not much is heard about till then. How did you, while doing the research, I'm sure you got in touch, but how did you get to know about this book?
So I actually got to know about this book from one of my colleagues over here, and he happened to have read about it somewhere. But this book was not available anywhere, online or in bookstores. It has gone out of print completely, I think, in the last 1 or 2 years. This is the last copy in the Hindi language, which is the first language in which it was published. Later on, the book actually became so, it was found to be so useful that it was translated into English and several other Indian languages. So let me tell you a little about the book itself. As you can see, it's written Sharir Ki Jankari, and, the whole cycle of a girl's life, the menstrual cycle has been depicted on the cover.
Yeah, the pictures.
Yeah. This little girl, and she's growing up, and
how she enters into puberty and everything.
Yeah, the whole cycle is there. And of course, you can see the motifs, Bandhani motifs from, Rajasthan, which is again very traditional folk Rajasthan.
The book is, if you look inside, if you get to know, the book is done very aesthetically.
Absolutely.
It means the menstrual, general common opinion about men, whenever we talk about menstruation, is something that needs to be whispered.
Yeah.
No, we can't talk loudly about it. It's that time of the month.
Yeah, exactly.
Things like that. But then it's a very bold book, but it's done in a very tasteful manner.
Absolutely. And that also has a very interesting history, which of course I don't want to speak much about because you can read about that in the article itself. But just to give you a small introduction to it, this book, like you can see, these are very aesthetically pleasing sort of stick figures, and the brilliant part is all of this has been done, written, curated, everything by these Rajasthani women from the villages of Rajasthan. And this was published by Kali for Women, which is a feminist publisher founded by Urvashi Butalia and Ritu Menon. And Ms. Butalia was really kind enough to have let us borrow this book during,
This is the last copy available.
Yeah, it's actually a 5 copies. So, we actually had the privilege of getting to take a closer look at the book, which probably no one else will be, at least for some time to come, because it's out of print. And this book is basically, it's like a journal, it's like a guide on menstruation. What what kind of different menstruation cycles different women have. Some have it like, some have a 20-day cycle, some have a 40-day cycle. And the most brilliant bit about this book,
these
flaps. Yeah, like you can, let me just try and show it to you without obstructing much of the image. Like, see, these amazing flaps, which basically talk about the anatomy of the woman's body when she is going through menstruation, what kind of changes, which are the different parts of the body which are involved in the process of menstruation, and what do they look like, what are the functions, what happens physiologically. All of that has been put into it, and the reason behind the flaps, of course, is because, even till today, I mean, this we're talking about the 1980s, but even till today, like you said, menstruation is such a taboo. You have to whisper about it.
We have even brands.
Yeah. So, you have to whisper about it. And you can't talk about it too openly. So, just to make sure that, there is no ban or something like that which can be put on it, these are put under these amazing flaps.
And you was mentioning that these flaps were put later. Initially,
they
didn't have the flaps.
Initially,
there was a lot of controversy.
The flaps weren't there initially. They came later because, if you could just look at it. Because, of course, initially there was a bit of backlash from the community where the books were being distributed, and, where, see, it's so amazingly done. Like, they're showing the cycle, how when the bleeding starts. So there was a bit of backlash initially where it was called, vulgar and all of that. These flaps were engineered by these brilliant village women, all of whom have been credited on the backside of the book. Because there were 70 plus women who had come together and authored this book. They wanted to ensure, and the publisher wanted to ensure, that none of them were left out. And none of them.
Such a brilliant thing.
Exactly. All their names are given equal space, so that, if it was done on the front cover, some of their names might have been close to the title of the book. So people might have thought, oh, maybe, they were the primary authors, rest of them were secondary. So to avoid that kind of confusion, all of them have been credited on the back cover of the book. So this book is actually a very sort of, in a way, I would say, symbolic of the kind of article that we've written in totality on folk art and menstruation. It's very symbolic of the article and the kind of folk art that we see in India at large talking about menstruation, because it really speaks about not just the fact that a lot of folk arts treat it as a very normal thing. They don't really want to call it taboo. They don't think it's something disgusting or something that you should totally keep a secret, make a secret out of. They celebrate it. In certain cultures, you celebrate it, as you might read in the article.
Yeah, I think in Parsi it's celebrated when you enter into first. It's like a marriage celebration.
A lot of cultures actually treat it like, a big celebration, like as opulent and as extravagant as a marriage. That has also been mentioned. You'll find out about that as well. But I think, again, what's so exceptionally amazing about this book is it's a very one-of-a-kind book. And the entire theme is attributed to women from the rural parts of the country, from Rajasthan. And, the history of publication of this book is also equally fascinating and equally telling, as to how menstruation is so much more than just a physiological phenomenon. It has become a major social issue as well, which is why every time a woman or anyone wants to talk about it, the first reaction, knee-jerk reaction almost, is to shut them up.
Actually, there is I think many of the schools are taking the initiative also about educating the girls beforehand, even the boys, so that they are a little bit sensitive towards understanding instead of making fun of why just skirt stain. That is the first thing they should do, is educate the people on this bit of what women go through during those time of the month.
Yeah, absolutely.
And does the book talk about hygiene also?
Absolutely. The book is, so, one of the people who, one of the women who was involved in the production of this book, I happened to have spoken to her during the research, and she told me that this might just look like a book only on menstruation, but it's not. It's actually about sexual health of women. And as you can see, it's such a lovely thing that this book has. It's like this kind of a diary calendar kind of a thing where you can keep a track of your menstrual cycle. And which I think a lot of us do on our phones maybe, or keep diaries. Yeah. So this book had that. So it's pretty utilitarian as well. Like it's not just.
It's very important to maintain this. Once I was told by a doctor to maintain a diary when you are having it, so that when you are having an hormonal imbalance, also you get to know about it.
Yeah. Like whenever your cycle kind of goes off track, it's late or it's early. It can probably signal something. You might
something
have to pay attention to.
happening inside you, which needs to be treated.
Yeah, and it also talks about, I'm sure, issues which are not just related to your menstrual health, but also how women in general are treated, say, in the interiors of the country. We know as to how the taboos work. A lot of women in the interiors are asked to leave their house, stay in an outhouse under very hostile conditions, which kind of increase their physical discomfort anyway. And see, over here...
Yeah, there was a time I remember mentioning, I think it was mentioned in the Mahabharata, that Draupadi did not take bath.
Yeah.
But is it required?
So, during my research, I actually spoke to a lot of people from the northeast and a lot of people down south, basically from all over the country. And some of them they've said that some remote areas in the country still believe that women shouldn't take a bath for the first 3 or 4 days. Once the cycle is coming to an end.
Does it have a scientific link to it that taking a bath increases the pain or something like that?
I mean, I don't know.
Discomfort.
They were not able to really justify. They were like, it's been happening, so we've sort of considered it a norm and we've not really questioned it. Like, it happens. But like I was saying, this book is not just about menstruation. It also talks about, what happens after menopause and what you can do to check if you've got cervical or ovarian cancer, Like, and good. Even the book even talks about...
I'm sure they've also done a lot of research.
Absolutely.
When they came
and
writing.
What happens in villages, women are beaten up maybe. That also is found mentioned in the book. So it's
beaten up, which has a relation with menstruation.
If you're considered impure, quote unquote, when you're menstruating. So, what kind of, how getting beaten up or how your daily life can also have, the stress you face in your daily life can also have an effect on your menstrual cycle.
Yes, it does.
So, all of that has been mentioned, and it's an absolutely brilliant book. And, I really hope it comes back in print at some point of time, as you can see. So, this is, like I said,
I'm surprised that we didn't get to know about this book before.
Yeah. And this is just one of those lovelier things that we've spoken about, apart from the great range of articles that we have. Even Lakshmi has authored this lovely article, and a very important one on period leaves, which has become a very important talking point in the country. So go grab the copy when it's out and have a good year.